What happens when a 19-year-old American soldier is the only thing standing between an incoming Iranian ballistic missile and every single person on her base? She does not run for cover. She stays at her post while the alarms are screaming, and she does her job, and that decision cost her life. But what America did next will leave you speechless. If you want the real truth behind what our troops face and how we honor their sacrifice, please like this video, subscribe right now, and share it with someone who needs to hear this story. On July 17th, 2026, the sky over the desert in Jordan turned into a nightmare. At Muwaffaq Salti Air Base, a critical American outpost that most Americans have never even heard of, 3 young soldiers were doing the most dangerous and selfless job in the military. They were air defense soldiers. Their job was not to attack. Their job was to protect. Think about that for a second. While everyone else on a base can dive into a bunker when missiles are coming, these soldiers have to stay out in the open, next to their radar and their Patriot missile launchers, staring at screens trying to shoot those missiles down before they land. They are the shield. If they fail, everyone dies. If they succeed, no one even knows how close they came to dying. That is who Isabella Gonzalez was. She was 19 years old from Carrollton, Texas. She had just started her life. She was assigned to an air defense brigade based in Germany, deployed forward to Jordan to support the long fight against ISIS. She was the youngest soldier in her unit, but she had one of the most important jobs on the entire base. And on that day when Iran fired its most advanced missiles straight at her base, she was at her post. Tyler James Fahan was 25. He was from Oahu, Hawaii. He was a first lieutenant. That means he was a leader. He was an officer in charge of air defense soldiers like Isabella. He was from the same kind of unit based at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. His job was the same: protect the base, protect his people, lead from the front. When those missiles came in, he was not hiding. He was leading. He was doing exactly what he trained his soldiers to do: stand your ground, defend the base. And then there was Sergeant Angel Estrada Ramirez, 28 years old, from Ozone Park, New York. He was the third one. For days, no one knew where he was. After the attack, the military said 2 soldiers were killed and 1 was missing. Missing on a base that just got hit by ballistic missiles is the worst possible news. It means they cannot find you in the rubble. It means your family has to wait days just to know if you are alive or dead. On Sunday, they found remains at the impact site. On Tuesday, they confirmed it was him, 3 soldiers, 3 Americans, 19, 25, and 28. All air defense, all there to protect others, all killed by the same enemy. To understand why this happened, you have to understand where this happened. Muwaffaq Salti Air Base is in Jordan. It is not a giant base like you see in Qatar or Bahrain. For years, it was considered a quieter, safer location. American bases in the Gulf near the Strait of Hormuz had been getting hit over and over again for months. They knew the drill. Their defenses were on the highest alert. Their bunkers were reinforced. Their crews had practiced this 100 times under real fire. Jordan was different. Jordan had not been hit as much. It was seen as more stable, more protected by its alliance with the local government. And that is exactly why Iran chose it. This was not random. This was calculated. Intelligence reports later showed that Iran had been testing this base. In the days before the fatal strike, there were 4 smaller Iranian missile and drone attacks on American forces in Jordan. 4. Each one was a probe. Each one was Iran asking, how fast do you react? How good is your defense? What will America do if we push a little harder? When America did not launch a massive response to those 4 probes, Iran decided to escalate. And on July 17th, they did not send cheap drones. They sent their best ballistic missiles. What made these missiles so deadly? Iran has different kinds of weapons. Some are cheap, slow drones that are easy to shoot down. Some are old missiles that fly in a straight line. But the ones they used on July 17th were different. They were advanced ballistic missiles that can maneuver at the end of their flight. That means they do not just fall. They twist and turn as they come down to avoid being intercepted. They are specifically designed to beat the Patriot system that soldiers like Isabella and Tyler were operating. And Iran did not fire just one. They fired a combined attack. Ballistic missiles and attack drones at the same time. Why? Because it overwhelms the defense. The radar has to track multiple threats coming from different directions at different speeds. The crew has to make split-second decisions about which threat to shoot first. It is the hardest possible scenario for an air defense team. Reports that came out after the attack said at least 2 missiles actually got through and hit the base directly. You can even see video online of the smoke rising after the impact. 2 missiles got through, despite everything those American soldiers did to stop them. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, claimed responsibility within hours. They put out an official statement. In that statement, they claimed that the U.S. had secretly moved its regional command headquarters from Qatar to this base in Jordan. That claim was never verified by the U.S. military. But it shows you what Iran believed. They believed they were hitting the brain of American operations in the Middle East. They also claimed the base was full of America's most advanced fighter jets, F-35 stealth fighters, F-15 Strike Eagles, F-16 fighters, and big refueling tankers. Whether that list was true or not, it proves their mindset. They thought this was a high-value target. They thought if they could cripple this base, they could stop American airstrikes against Iran. So this was not just another rocket attack. This was a deliberate attempt to knock out American air power at its source. And the soldiers standing in their way were air defense troops, teenagers, and 20-year-olds with the weight of the entire base on their shoulders. Imagine being 19. Imagine being thousands of miles from Texas in the burning desert of Jordan. Your job is to watch a radar screen for 12 hours straight. Nothing happens for days. Then suddenly, the screen lights up. A warning alarm that you have only heard in training starts screaming for real. Incoming ballistic missile. Time to impact, less than 2 minutes. Everyone on the base is told to take cover, but you cannot. Your job is to stay. Your job is to lock on, to fire, to try to save everyone else. That is courage that most people will never understand. That is what Isabella did. That is what Tyler did. That is what Angel did. They knew the risk. Every air defense soldier knows that when a missile is coming, they are the most exposed person on the base. Their launcher is the target. Their radar is the target. They are the target. And they stay anyway. For their families, the nightmare started with a knock on the door. Military families know what that knock means. At 19, Isabella was supposed to be starting college, starting a career, figuring out her life. At 25, Tyler was supposed to be building his future as an officer, maybe starting a family of his own. At 28, Angel was supposed to have his whole life ahead of him. Instead, 3 flags were folded. 3 sets of parents, brothers, sisters, friends were told their loved one died defending others. When you hear the phrase killed in action, it can feel distant. It can feel like a statistic. It is not. It is 3 empty chairs at 3 dinner tables in Texas, Hawaii, and New York. And for 4 agonizing days, one family lived in that terrible space between hope and heartbreak, waiting to know if their son was missing or gone. This is where the story takes a turn that no one expected, because the American response was unlike anything we'd seen before in this war. If this story is hitting you the way it hit me, please do me a favor and tap that subscribe button and leave a comment saying where you're watching from. It helps this story reach more people who need to honor these heroes. On July 18th, at around 6 p.m. Eastern Time, less than 24 hours after those 2 missiles hit the base in Jordan, the United States Central Command, known as CENTCOM, launched a massive counterstrike against Iran. Now, America had been striking Iran for more than a week at that point, 8 nights in a row. Every night, American jets were hitting radar sites and missile storage bunkers and coastal launchers that Iran uses to threaten ships in the Strait of Hormuz. Those strikes were described in very cold, strategic language. Degrading enemy capability, reducing future threats. That is military language for we are making them weaker for tomorrow. But the statement CENTCOM released on July 18th was completely different. It had 2 words that had never appeared before. Swiftly punish. Let me read you the exact line from their official post. The strikes are designed to further degrade Iran's ability to threaten shipping and swiftly punish the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps forces who launched attacks against American service members in Jordan last night. Swiftly punish. Those 2 words change everything. Degrade is about the future. Punish is about the past. It means you killed our people last night, so today we are coming for you. Specifically you, not just random targets, the units that pulled the trigger. And in the very next sentence, CENTCOM made it even more clear. American military assets also targeted IRGC forces that launched attacks against U.S. service members in Jordan on July 17th. That is as direct as the military ever gets in public. They were saying, we know who you are. We tracked you down. We found the specific IRGC units that planned and fired the missiles that killed Gonzalez, Fehan, and Ramirez. And we hit them today, less than 24 hours later. This is not deterrence. This is consequence. Think about what that means for an IRGC commander sitting in a bunker in Iran. Before July 18th, he might have thought, if I fire missiles at Americans, America will bomb some radar somewhere. That is a cost. But it is a general cost. After July 18th, the calculation is totally different. Now he has to think, if I kill an American, America will find me. They will find my unit. They will put a missile through the roof of my command center specifically. My name is on the list. My unit is marked. That is personal. That is terrifying. And that shift in doctrine happened because of those 3 deaths. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth released a statement after the deaths were confirmed. He said their sacrifice only stiffens our resolve. That sounds simple, but in the world of international conflict, that is a message to Iran, to Jordan, to the American troops still over there, and to the families. It means we are not pulling back. We are not going to be more cautious and hide in our bases. We are going to push harder. 3 American soldiers died protecting others, so America will honor them by making sure their deaths mean something strategic. And what happened next shows exactly how America did that. CENTCOM did something unusual. They declassified and released actual video footage of the retaliatory strikes. Not old satellite photos. Real-time video of American weapons hitting Iranian targets. Why would they do that? Because they wanted Iran to see it. They wanted the world to see it. They wanted every IRGC soldier to watch what happens when you kill Americans. The footage showed 2 kinds of targets being destroyed. One was a radar facility. The other was construction equipment. Now, why would the US waste an expensive missile to blow up a bulldozer? That sounds strange until you understand the strategy. If you blow up a radar tower, Iran can rebuild it. It takes months, but they can rebuild it. If you blow up the cranes and excavators and trucks that are being used to build that radar tower, you are not just destroying what exists today. You are destroying their ability to rebuild tomorrow. You are setting them back by a year, not a month. That is a much deeper kind of punishment. It is methodical. It is not emotional. It is cold, precise, and it makes it harder for Iran to ever threaten shipping or fire missiles. Again, one of the specific targets that was confirmed destroyed was a maritime surveillance tower in a place called Chabahar. Chabahar is a port city in southeastern Iran, right on the Gulf of Oman. Iran said this tower was just for watching commercial ships, like an air traffic control tower for boats. America said something very different. America said this was an IRGC spy tower used to track American and commercial ships moving through the Strait of Hormuz, so they could send fast attack boats to harass them. Both descriptions can be true. A tower that watches ships can also be used to target ships. By destroying it, America removed Iran's eyes over that critical waterway. Experts who study this war pointed out an important legal and moral point about these targets. A senior fellow at the Hudson Institute named Rebecca Heinrich said something that matters here. She said there are some targets the U.S. can legitimately hit, because even though they have some civilian use, they primarily help the IRGC to continue its war and to repress its own people. That is the key idea. Dual use. If a tower is mostly used by the military to attack ships, it is a military target, even if civilians also use it sometimes. That was the justification for hitting Chabahar. And it was a powerful one. It sent the message that we will not just hit your missile launchers. We will hit the network that lets you find targets in the first place. But the retaliation did not end the fighting. Far from it. On Sunday, July 20th, the day after the American strikes, sirens went off across Amman, the capital city of Jordan. Millions of civilians heard the warning wail. Incoming Iranian missiles again. The American embassy in Jordan sent out an emergency alert to all American citizens. It told them to avoid the airport in Aqaba, the port city on the Red Sea, because of a specific and credible threat. At the same time, Jordan, Bahrain, and Kuwait all had to activate their air defenses again. 3 missiles headed for Jordan were shot down. A 4th landed in a remote area. No one was hurt, but think about the fear. Think about what the people of Jordan must feel. Jordan is an American ally. King Abdullah has stood with America throughout this war. And for that choice, his capital city gets missile sirens. His civilians have to run for cover. The IRGC even put out a threat, saying any country that hosts American bases involved in strikes on Iran should expect to be hit. That threat was aimed directly at Jordan, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, and every other neighbor that lets America operate from their soil. Iran was trying to break the alliance by making it too painful for those countries to help America. The scope of this war had grown far beyond what anyone expected when it started on February 28, 2026. What began as a fight over shipping in the Strait of Hormuz had expanded. American forces were hitting bridges and power stations in Iran. Iran was firing at electrical grids and desalination plants in Gulf countries, trying to cut off water and power for civilians. And American bases were being hit almost daily. This was no longer a small, contained operation. This was a regional war. And in the middle of it were soldiers like Isabella, Tyler, and Angel. You've stayed with this story for this long because you understand this is bigger than headlines. So if you haven't already, smash that like button to honor these 3 soldiers and subscribe so you never miss the truth about what our military is really doing over there. There's one more number that the news barely talked about, and I need to tell you this number because it shows the real cost of this war. 427. That was the number of American service members wounded in this conflict as of July 20th. 427, not dead, wounded. That means blast injuries, burns from drone explosions, shrapnel wounds from missile fragments, traumatic brain injuries from the pressure wave of a near miss. That is almost as many wounded as America had in the entire first year of the Iraq War in 2003. And this war had only been going on for 5 months. 420. From missile fragments, traumatic brain injuries from the pressure wave of a near miss. That is almost as many wounded as America had in the entire first year of the Iraq War in 2003. And this war had only been going on for 5 months. 427 families dealing with long hospital stays, rehab, surgeries, and the invisible wounds that come home with you. And that number was growing every day. In the same week, those 3 air defenders were killed. A 4th American was killed in northern Iraq. He was not killed in a direct missile strike. He was killed trying to safely dispose of an unexploded Iranian drone that had already crashed. Even after Iran's weapons fail, they are still deadly. Let me break down for you why that punishment targeting doctrine is such a big deal from a military perspective, because I think this is the most important change in how America is fighting this war. Before, when Iran would fire at American bases, America would respond by hitting a list of pre-planned targets, radar sites, weapons depots, boat bases. The goal was to make Iran weaker overall. That is called strategic degradation. It is effective over time, but it does not feel personal to the commander who ordered the attack. He can tell himself, well, that was just part of the war. Punishment. Targeting is different. It is personal. It requires incredible intelligence work. To do it, you have to figure out exactly which IRGC unit ordered the launch, which unit transported the missiles, which unit provided the targeting data, and where those units are located right now. That means using satellites, signals intelligence, human sources on the ground, drones watching for days. It is some of the hardest work in the military. But when you can do it, and you can prove you did it publicly, you create a new kind of fear. Every IRGC officer now knows that his unit can be tracked. That if he kills Americans, the response is not going to be somewhere else on a map. It is going to be on his front door. That changes how people make decisions about whether to escalate or not. Some people will ask, does this make Iran more likely to back down, or more likely to get angrier and fight harder? That is a real debate. Secretary Hegseth said, American resolve gets stiffer. He suggested we get stronger when we are hit. But does Iran see it the same way? The evidence from that Sunday barrage over Amman suggests Iran did not back down right away. They fired again. They tried to hit Jordan again. They tried to hit Aqaba, so punishment did not immediately stop them. But deterrence rarely works in one strike. Deterrence is about building a pattern. It is about teaching the enemy over weeks and months that every time you kill an American, you personally will pay a heavy price. Eventually, commanders who want to stay alive stop ordering those attacks. That is the theory. And July 18th was the day America started teaching that lesson in the clearest possible language. There is also the information war side of this. Why did CENTCOM posts swiftly punish on X for everyone to see? Why did they release video? In modern war, the message is part of the weapon. If you quietly bomb an IRGC unit in the desert and no one knows it was revenge for Muwaffaq Salti, you get the military benefit of destroying the unit, but you lose the psychological benefit. By saying it out loud, by putting those 2 words out on a public platform where every IRGC commander, every Iranian leader, every ally, and every American family can read them, you turn a single strike into a public promise. You're telling your own troops, we will avenge you. You're telling the families, your loved ones did not die for nothing, and we know who did it. And you're telling the enemy, we are not hiding our intentions anymore. We are coming for the people responsible. That public messaging is powerful. It is also risky, because now you have made a promise you have to keep next time too. But after losing 3 air defenders who were literally the shield for everyone else, America decided that risk was worth taking. I want to go back to who these soldiers were for a moment, because it is easy to get lost in strategy and forget the human part. Air defense artillery is often called the least appreciated job in the Army. Infantry gets the movies. Fighter pilots get the glory. Air defense soldiers sit in the dirt next to a loud generator watching a screen for hours in the heat, waiting for a missile that may never come. But when it does come, they are the difference between life and death for hundreds of people. Private Isabella Gonzalez at 19 was doing that. She could have been in college. She could have been working a regular job in Texas. Instead, she volunteered to stand in that desert. First Lieutenant Tyler Fahan, at 25, was an officer. He was responsible for the lives of the soldiers under him. He could have taken a safer assignment. He chose this. Sergeant Angel Ramirez at 28 was experienced. He knew exactly how dangerous these deployments were. He had seen the drone attacks, the rocket attacks, the constant threat, and he still re-enlisted. He still went back. That tells you everything about character. That is not just a job. That is a calling to protect others at your own risk. The day before the fatal attack, staff at the base described a tense but normal atmosphere. Maintenance crews were fixing generators. Pilots were flying patrols. Air defense crews were doing routine checks on their Patriot batteries. The PAX-3 interceptors, the missiles that shoot down incoming missiles, were loaded and ready. No one knew that Iran had decided this base was now a primary target. No one knew that the next day would bring advanced missiles, specifically designed to defeat the very system those 3 soldiers were operating. When the first alarm went off on July 17th, the response was immediate. According to reports, the base went into full defense mode. Interceptors were fired. Many threats were likely shot down that we never even heard about. That is the success of air defense. When it works, nothing happens. But that day, 2 missiles got through. 2 were enough. The explosion was massive. Ballistic missiles carry hundreds of pounds of explosives, and they hit at several times the speed of sound. The impact creates not just fire and shrapnel, but a huge pressure wave that can kill even people who are not hit by fragments. 4 other soldiers were medically evacuated to Jordanian hospitals. Others had minor injuries and went back to duty within hours. That tells you how chaotic and violent that moment was. When the smoke cleared, commanders did what the military always does after a strike: accountability. Who was missing? Who was wounded? Where is everyone? That is when they realized 1 soldier was unaccounted for. In the chaos of a missile strike, with dust and smoke and damaged buildings, it can take hours to know who is where. Some soldiers might be in a hospital. Some might be helping wounded. Some might be in a different bunker. So at first, missing does not mean dead. It means we cannot find you yet and we are searching. Search teams went into the impact area, even though there was still a risk of more attacks. They searched through the rubble. It took until Sunday to find what they feared. Remains were found at the strike site. The process to identify those, the impact area, even though there was still a risk of more attacks. They searched through the rubble. It took until Sunday to find what they feared. Remains were found at the strike site. The process to identify those remains is careful and respectful, with DNA testing and forensic work, because the military has a sacred promise that no soldier is left behind and that families get the truth. On Tuesday, the family of Sergeant Angel Ramirez got the confirmation. He was believed killed in action on July 17th, alongside his fellow air defenders. If stories like these matter to you, and you believe these soldiers' names should be heard by every American, please hit like, subscribe, and share this video right now. Posting it is one simple way to make sure they are never forgotten. Here is the full truth as it stands today. On July 17th, 2026, Iran fired advanced ballistic missiles and drones at Muwaffaq Salti Air Base in Jordan. Private Isabella Gonzalez, 19 years old, from Carrollton, Texas, was killed in action. First Lieutenant Tyler James Fahan, 25 years old, from Oahu, Hawaii, was killed in action. Sergeant Angel Ramirez, 28 years old, from Ozone Park, New York, was killed in action. His remains found 2 days later. 4 soldiers were evacuated. More were wounded but returned to duty. A 4th American died the next day in Iraq, clearing an Iranian drone. 17 Americans dead in total in this war so far, 427 wounded. On July 18th, at about 6 p.m. Eastern, CENTCOM launched its 9th straight night of strikes, but this time it specifically targeted the IRGC forces that launched the Jordan attack. It called that mission Swiftly Punish. It released declassified video of the strikes destroying a radar facility, construction equipment, and the surveillance tower at Chabahar Port. It established a new doctrine. If you kill Americans, we will find the unit that did it, and we will hit you directly. That is the permanent mark these 3 soldiers left on this war. Their job was to be the shield. They held that shield to their last breath. They stood so others could live. And because of their sacrifice, America made a public promise that will change how this war is fought from now on. So remember their names. Say them out loud. Isabella Gonzalez, Tyler James Fahan, Angel Ramirez, 19, 25, 28. Air Defense Artillery, the Shield, the Protectors. They did not die in vain. Their deaths stiffened the resolve of a nation. Their story deserves to be told and retold until every single American knows what it costs to keep our bases safe and what it means when we say we will never leave a fallen comrade behind.